Welcome to another edition of What Would Aaron Say? I'm Aaron. This is what I say. Alright, so it's been a while since I did one of these. I took a year off to sort of run around the world with some pop divas, like you do. No big deal. Anyway, and I learned a lot, but it really became a life of just belting all the time. So I realized I need to get back to this belting series. So this is belting part 3. You can work on the breathing systems that we did in the last video, and you can work on strengthening your ability to drag up recipes, but a Corvette without a street isn't worth very much, so we've got to have a path for that air to go, which means that the pronunciation becomes the next big issue. There's a sort of secret that I discovered about 10 years ago from studying basically the phonemes, the consonants. And it turns out that there are 4 consonants that aren't really consonants at all. They're actually vowels, really. W, R, L, and Y. I call them the WRLY consonants because they spell whirly. There's nothing whirly about them. It's just the only word that I could find that had all 4 of them in it. So what happens is W, R, L, and Y are all 4 consonants that make your mouth close, but not completely. M and an NG, make your mouth close completely, so you really only have one other option. It's all going to go out your nose at that moment. But on the W, R, L, and Y, it doesn't necessarily do that for you. So if I'm on an any vowel, and I go to W, wa, ra, la, ya, I go to any of those consonants, it makes my mouth close, and my air has to slow down if I only have my mouth available. If I have another hole available, and if you've got holes that I don't know about, that's a whole other story, but I'm assuming you've only got a mouth and a nose. So the other hole that you've got is your nose. So as you're doing an and then you go to a W, your mouth closes. There's no place for that air to go. It's got to go out this other hole. If you don't have this other hole available, then the air is going to have to slow down when you close your mouth. And if it does, you're either going to have to tighten your cords to keep that same pitch, or you'll go flat. And you'll hear people, and it'll change the pitch a little bit. So the trick is, when you go to these 4 consonants, you need to make sure that the air is going primarily out your nose for at least that moment. We could do like a vowel chart so that we could say the 100% nose sounds are M, N, and NG. The 75% nose sounds would be W, R, L, and Y. The 50% nose sounds would be the 3 French nasals, en, un. And then the 25%, or I like to say 30%, is basically all the other vowels. Now, W and Y are actually oo and e. When you say the word way, you're going oo-way. You hear the oo. And when you say the letter Y, you're going e. So if you say yes, you're going yes. So W and Y are actually oo and e. So all the other vowels, a, o, all that stuff, those are like a 30 to 25% nose. And then 0% nose would be like buh, duh, guh, those kinds of things. Keeping in mind that as soon as you get out of that consonant into the next vowel, the next thing after it is gonna need nose. So it would be like, if I'm saying ba, I've got to go ba and get like a 30% nose involvement on that. If you don't have the nose involvement, then as you make your mouth open and close, your air is gonna have to start and stop. And you're going to either get tight in your throat to keep your pitch accurate, or you're going to have pitch inaccuracies. So one of the big secrets to pop, especially singing really, really high, is the ability to have your nose involved. So if I basically take a note, an upper middle note, so like a D for guys, or for a lady, let's say like an A, or anything A, B, C sharp, D, anything in that area, and you take the note and make sure that that W has nose. If you don't know how to do it, put an M in front of the W. The R, I would say you could do the same with an N. An L would be an N as well. La. And then the Y could be an NG. Nya. But basically put an M or an N or an NG in front of each of these 4 consonants, and it will force your nose to stay involved. There's a song that I like to use to teach this on, which is Heaven Help My Heart from Chess, because the opening lyric to the first verse is, if it were love, I would give that love every second I have. And the entire tune is sung on this one pitch. So it's if it were love, I would give that love every second I had. So you've got, if it were, there's a W, love, there's a Y, I would give that love every second I had. Now, if we take it up there, so this is the girl's key. If it were love, if I didn't have that nose involved, if it were, then there's this explosion of like air being pulled back because my mouth is closed. If it were love, I can't even begin to sing like that. So, if it were love, I would give that love every second I had. The second verse is, one of these days and it won't be long, he'll know more about me. So the same thing, one of these days and it won't be long, he'll know more about me than he should. The whole idea being, you're singing a repeated note so you can hear, one of these days, if you're staying on that pitch well or not. And you can take this down, you guys can take it to, if it were love, I would give that love every second I had. It doesn't matter what the key is. Just pick any note that's a little bit on the high side and sing those lyrics. Now, besides W, R, L, and Y, there are two other phonemes that have a little trick to them. The TH that's really an N and the V that's really an M. What I mean by this is, if I have to sing although, typically in our normal speech, a TH comes out your mouth, although. But in high singing, although, there's just, I need my nose. So what you do is you sing, these are pretty sounds, huh? So what you do is you sing the N, no, it's really an N. It's just the shape of a TH. So your tongue is against your teeth, though, just like you would for a the. So, no, you would sing it like that. The V does the same thing, but in the shape of an M. So instead of every, I'm exaggerating. You wouldn't really usually do a complete M, but like a half M. And it happens in one of these days, and it won't be long, he'll know more about me than he should. That because otherwise it's that, and you're gonna yell. And if it were love, I would give that love every. So love memory is like almost saying love memory, where there's an M in love memory, but instead of the two lips together for the M, it's the bottom lip against the top teeth. Love every, but love memory. So it's a lot of no's, but it's really high, and you need that. If it were love, I would give that love every second I had. So that's the V that's really an M, the TH that's really an N, and then W, R, L, and Y, which are really nasal includers. So that is in so much pop singing, and if you don't have your nose involved, you're going to yell out your mouth. And we know that that's not a great plan. That's not a great plan. It's never been a great plan. So the whole idea is, make sure that you've got a steady airstream, and the key to that is making sure that there is always a path. And besides your mouth, your nose is your other path. The higher you sing and the more the chords lengthen and the air shoots to the back, the more the air has to sort of spill out the nose for high notes. Now, there's another little way to describe this that's a little controversial, but we'll live through it. So it goes like this. As your chords lengthen and the air shoots to the rear, the air needs to spill out your nose, like I said. That means that things need to be pronounced in a way that allows the nose. The best way I have ever found to describe this is the way that people who are hearing impaired will speak, especially like the old time, like 1950s, where the air coming out the mouth and the nose equally has this kind of a sound to it. And the idea of going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that amount of nose on that kind of a note down there is not so necessary. But up the octave, that exact same pronunciation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that amount of nose is needed. So I'm kind of talking like that. But up the octave, that's the whole idea behind nose on higher notes. So the higher you gotta sing, the more that has to be in there. The WRLY consonants are really a product of that concept. The higher you sing, the more things need to be pronounced the way hearing impaired people talk, basically. We have better therapies than that now, so modern therapies tend to produce more realistic sounds. We don't have that sound in all the talking anymore. But That is really how you pronounce high notes. And this can become a bit of a diction problem. There are certain singers where we know they use a lot of nose and it becomes a little bit difficult to hear what words they're saying. It would not be problematic for you to go a little too nasal, or not nasal like but like nasal involvement, and then dial it back. Keep in mind also that nasality, as it is usually referred to, is not about whether the nose is involved or not. Rather, it's a comparison between the nose space and the throat space. I refer to these two components as honk and hoot, because the word honk actually contains the sound it's describing, and the word hoot actually contains the sound it's describing. So if I'm all hoot and no honk, it sounds very imbalanced. Then I'm just all there's no nose. If I'm all honk and no hoot, it sounds like that. If I take a sound that's really, really nasal, really, that's pretty nasal. I'm gonna keep that amount of nose. I'm gonna keep that amount of nose and add space to it, but not subtract any nose. You would not call that final sound too nasal. So the problem with the initial sound that I was making is that it wasn't that I just had nose involvement, it was that I had nose and not enough other space to balance it out. I've got to have hoot to balance the honk. They've got to be meeting in the same proportions. So don't be afraid to use your nose in these sounds. If I'm singing in a high note, but I have a lot of hoot to match a lot of honk, I'll be fine. But if I'm singing a high note and I don't have enough of this hoot space, it's going to sound out of balance, and then it's going to sound nasal. So it's not going to sound nasal as long as you've got those two cavities balanced. So if I talk with my nose way too much and then I dial it back just a little bit, that's how close to almost too much nose I live all the time. But it's how I'm able to teach 6 hours a day and still do these videos and sing this stuff. So that's what I have to say. Learn your WRLY consonants.